Call meeting to order. Anyone else? We'll move to athletics, please. Ms. Sexton.
Thank you, Mr. Renzo. Request approval of the 24-25 fall athletic supplemental contracts as proposed. Any objections or questions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the 24-25 Rotary supplemental contracts as proposed. Any questions or objections, I'd like that on the agenda.
Hearing none, will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to purchase 2024 WPIAL Team Wrestling Championship rings from Signature Championship Rings at the cost of $8,191. No questions or objections, I would like that on the agenda.
Hearing none, it will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to solicit bids for fall sports equipment and supplies. No questions or objections, I would like that on the agenda.
Hearing none, will be placed on the agenda.
That's all I have, Mr. Renzi. Mr. Evans.
Nothing, thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Renzo. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sexton. Moving to buildings and grounds, Mr. Detwiler.
All right, thank you, Mr. Franzel. Request the conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks of the following substitute custodian for the 2023-24 school year. With no objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, it will be placed on the agenda.
And I'd like to request approval of the following events and building usage requests, and I'd like to have 1 through 7 spread with no objections. I'll have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, it will be placed on the agenda.
Mr. Kokenar, anything?
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Langston?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Bigum? Nothing, thank you. All right, that's all we have, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Detwiler. Moving to the Carnegie Free Library, Mrs. Driscoll.
We have nothing to report. Their meeting was actually canceled this month.
All right, thank you.
Secretary.
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Driscoll. Moving to the Connellsville Area Career and Technical Center, Mr. Kokenauer.
Thank you, Mr. Panzala. Request approval to purchase a paint booth from Cleveland Spray Booth Specialist Incorporated, co-stars number 0000559128 at a cost of $108,623 to include installation and removal of the old booth as proposed, $85,000 from the competitive equipment grant and $23,623 from the supplemental equipment grant. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, will be placed on the agenda.
That's all I have, Mr. Panzala. Mr. Detwiler?
Nothing, sir.
Mrs. Langston?
Nothing, thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Panzala, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kokenauer. Moving to curriculum, Mr. Detwiler.
Mr. Martucci wants to know he had to read a lot tonight, huh? Request approval to renew no red ink for the Connellsville Area Middle School at a cost of $11,250 as proposed, pending solicitor review, subject to the Connellsville Area School District standard terms and conditions for the purpose of goods and services, and with no objections or questions, have that placed on the agenda. All righty,
Question?
See, I gave you a break.
thank you.
Well,
Get a little drink of water. Do that like every 3 of these.
Any-
is this like our third time, right, to get it? I mean, how long have we had?
We've had no ready prior to me taking this position. So it's been, like, I would say maybe a couple years prior to that, so since maybe 2018, 19,
And you really think it's a big deal?
they feel that it is, the English teachers there too.
Because I looked it up again, and I looked it up before, and then I looked it up again on Sunday, and now I'm starting to see these bad. I didn't know if it was just,
Our English teachers at the middle school find it very beneficial.
thank you. All right, go ahead.
No other questions? We'll have that placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the following professional employee travel. No questions or objections, like that 1 through 6 spread.
Hearing none, will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval for the elementary course adjustments effective for the 24-25 school year. No objections, have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, will be question on it.
I must have missed, I don't know what.
So there was attachment with this.
I just got my computer, so I didn't see that.
That's good. I think it's a new one. So in grades 1 through 5, we're going to have ELA as a course rather than, in one grade on the report card, rather than separated as reading, spelling, and English. They won't be separate anymore. We already do that with kindergarten. And then grade 3, we want to make science and social studies 9 weeks grades rather than semester grades. The teachers are very, or actually been asking for that, so. You're welcome.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, gotta get it on the agenda.
Oh,
Hearing none, it will be placed on the agenda.
Request to renew Screencastify for 2024-2025 school year at a cost of $17,053 as proposed, pending solicitor review, subject to the Connellsville Area School District standard terms and conditions for the purchase of goods and services with no questions or objections. Have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, it will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to purchase mystery science packs for grades K through 12 at a cost of $15,327.80, pending solicitor review, subject to Connellsville Area School District standard terms and conditions for the purchase of goods and services, and with no questions or objections, have that placed on the agenda.
I have a question.
Question?
On these mystery science packs, is there any chance that we could see what they are or what's in them or how it?
I can send you a link to what's exactly.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
gee, all these rings you get.
Cecilia, if you solve that mystery, let us know.
Okay. I'll check that out.
Thank you.
So we will request approval of mystery science packs for grades 3 to 5 at a cost of $18,889.20 to be paid from the ARP ESSER 7% set aside funds pending grant approval, subject to the Connellsville Area School District standard terms and conditions for the purchase of goods and services. No questions or objections? Can I have that placed on the agenda? Yeah. Wow.
Is that bigger packs because there's more money than the,
There's just more needed. And they're a little bit more expensive probably
because of the higher grades?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And you'll send me a link to that too?
It's all one link.
Okay, wonderful, thanks.
Hearing none, it will be placed on the agenda. Anything else?
Request approval for an agreement at a maximum of 3 years for News Love for grades 3 through 12 at a cost of up to $184,782 to be paid from the ESSER funds pending grant approval and solicitor review in accordance with the corresponding proposal and subject to the Connellsville Area School District standard terms and conditions for the purchase of goods and services. With no questions or objections, have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, it will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval for an agreement of a maximum of 3 years for Renaissance Learning Star Reading and Accelerated Reader at a cost of up to $172,713.48 to be paid from the ESSER funds pending grant approval and solicitor review in accordance with the corresponding proposal and subject to the Connellsville Area School District standard terms and conditions for the purchase of goods and services, and with no questions or objections, have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, it will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval for an agreement of a maximum of 3 years for Renaissance Learning Star Math at a cost of up to $19,753.63. Bob, do you want to read it? To be paid from the ESSER funds pending grant approval and solicitor review in accordance with the corresponding proposal and subject to Connellsville Area School District standard terms and conditions for the purchase of goods and services. No questions or objections, and I'd like to place on the agenda.
Hearing none, it will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval for an agreement at a maximum of 3 years for Power School for Schoology, man, I sound like a dummy on that, LMS at a cost of up to $77,616 to be paid from the ESSER funds pending grant approval and solicitor review in accordance with the corresponding proposal and subject to the Connellsville Area School District standard terms and conditions for the purchase of goods and services.
Question.
And I assume there will be budgets.
Okay, I thought that we put this to rest. We had a vote on Schoology. It was declined. And why do we have it back? How many times are we going to vote on the same thing over and over again?
When does this run out? If we don't do anything?
May 30th.
All right,
So we got at least.
So answer her question, why is it back on when we already voted no?
Who is that question directed to, Mrs. Sexton?
Anybody.
I'll direct it to you, since you're pushing it.
I'm not pushing
Why is
anything.
that
I'm not pushing
You are so
anything.
insistent that we get this Schoology. What is the, we've talked to teachers, we've talked to students, we've talked to parents.
I can give you a little information that I got, and this kind of came after the fact of, I've gone back, Mr. Detweiler says we need direction, and again, we need direction, and we're not gonna go with this. And I think that's how this ended up back on the agenda. But I can tell you, when I was at my conference, there was a district, we had a session called Innovative, Impactful, and Sustainable Uses of ESSER Funding. And there was a district called Centennial School District who actually, not necessarily Schoology, but one of the things that they did that was impactful, and this actually came from I believe it was the federal monitors, I can tell you. It was a director of compliance, grant monitoring compliance officers who had this session. And they had districts come and talk about some of the things that they did with their ESSER money that were sustainable. And one of the things that they presented was this district had used the money to provide online cyber courses for their district. So they had the online courses ready, plus they used it to build their own cyber school, which is what we had originally written in the grant. And part of what we had originally written stemmed from having Schoology. So I did want to just, since we don't have any direction, we wanted to one more time give this a chance to see if it would pass.
Now, you're gonna take one person to tell you to have direction when there was already 6 voted no on this, and then you're gonna put it back. So what is this board sitting here for?
No, he said
Why is
direction
9
for all,
people?
we just haven't had any other direction on what to do next.
So
So
then
if
it's
it's
gonna
a
be put
no,
on.
that's fine,
Yeah.
but we're looking for direction on what to do next.
And we're
Did you ever
frozen.
ask anybody?
Could we-
Yeah.
Yeah. Could we
No,
have asked,
It doesn't take one person.
could we
There's
have all,
9 people on the board.
but could we have mixed Google Plus in with it? I mean, it's another tool in the toolbox. It's nothing that anybody has to use, it's just something that they would like to use.
If you want it for a follow-up, for our own cyber, schools use Google. Because we have called schools in the local area, and they all have Google.
But Google is not a centrally managed learning management system in the sense that, the same way that like Canvas or Schoology or Blackboard is. So doing a cyber school with Google for a district our size, I don't think Mr. Ghost or I would recommend that. Am I correct, Mr. Ghost?
Well, schools on other sides that are our size doing it, so what makes a
Yeah.
difference?
Using Google?
Absolutely, what we call it.
I got questions for the board members, the ones that talk to the teachers that don't like it. How many teachers did you talk to?
I didn't talk to teachers, I talked to students, so let me tell you, I talked to 42 students from gifted all the way down. Because I don't give a damn about anybody else right now, I care about the kids in this school
So,
district.
and there's what? How many kids is in this school district?
It doesn't matter how many I talk to, if you talk
Well,
to
I'm just
42.
asking a question.
You know
You're
who's
making
being
up.
screwed? It's the middle kids. They're falling through the cracks, and we're passing them, and they're failing.
Okay.
Did you look it up? Go look it up.
I'm just going off of what Ginger saying.
No, I don't talk to I talk to the kids.
Mr. Driscoll
Yes.
talked to the
We've talked to
teachers.
I
I'm
didn't.
sure
I
some of
talked
the
to
other
the
board
kids.
members talked to the
I
teachers.
didn't. I talked to the kids.
And I just wanted to know, it was a question somebody brought up, I just want to know out of 306 teachers, how many did you talk to?
Well, I did not talk to 306, I can tell you that.
You
But
might-
I've talked to teachers in
The 25 that was
I've
probably,
talked to teachers in the elementary school, but the people that have been the most vocal about it are the parents who can't even get on and see their kids' grades. The students who can't import things from one program into the other. So if you have a teacher this year who's using Schoology, and then you move to a teacher who's not using it, they're using Google, they can't transport work that they might want to cross over into it from one to the other. That's not a good scenario. Or you have kids maybe in elementary school who use Schoology for 1, 2, 3 years, and then all of a sudden the next teachers use Google Classroom. These kids, you're asking them to switch, and then the next year they go back to a Schoology person. It's crazy.
We shouldn't even be arguing with people.
Kevin,
We already said.
How did you import grades before Schoology? Was it Google?
Grades have nothing to do with this. The grades are all in Power School. Power School is the student information system. Schoology is a learning management system. So you put your learning objectives you put your content in the learning management system, and then it has the ability to grade those assignments for you. And then that grade gets passed back to Power School.
So the grades always went, even before
Grades,
this-
grades have to go in Power School. That's the student information system.
So, let's move on.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll place that on.
Request approval for an agreement and a maximum of 3 years to purchase amplified license for Dibbles benchmarking for grades K to 12 at a cost of up to $33,080.58 to be purchased from the ESSER 7% set-aside funds. Pending grant approval and solicitor review in accordance with the corresponding proposal and subject to the Connersville School District standard terms and conditions of purchase of goods and services, and with no questions or objections, have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on.
Request approval for an agreement at a maximum of 3 years to purchase amplified licensing for Dibbles benchmarking for grades 3 through 5 at a cost of up to $32,662.80 to be paid from the ESSER 7% set-aside funds pending grant approval and solicitor review in accordance with the corresponding proposal and subject to the Connersville School District standard terms and conditions for the purchase of goods and services. No questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Question,
Hey, question?
is this the same program that we're using now, or is this something different?
What Amplify is the same program we're using now. We've always done Dibbles K to 2. This year, we've also done it 3 to 5. Then the final one is, we'd like some licenses for secondary so that for the students doing, getting the, like the rewards program or some remediation, we have the ability to digitally look at their data.
So is this the same program that we've
Yes.
used in the past?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have one quick question, and this is an easy one. All the costs are up to an amount. Is that based on a per student cost?
It's the student cost and depends on how many years that you're actually approved through the grant.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No other questions, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval for an agreement of a maximum of 3 years to purchase amplified license for Dibbles benchmarking for grades 6 to 12 at a cost of $32,000 to be paid from the ESSER 7% set-aside funds, pending grant approval and solicitor review in accordance with the corresponding proposal and subject to the Connersville School District standards, terms, and conditions for the purchase of goods and services with no questions or objections. Have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Oh, let's see who we got. Mr. Renzi.
No, you did it all, Mr.
You helped out a little bit in the middle there. Dr. Coons?
I have nothing, thank you.
That's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Bidwell. Moving to cyber, Mr. Martrek.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. We have nothing this evening. Mrs. Driscoll, do you have anything?
I have nothing.
Mr. Harshman?
Nothing, thank
Mr.
you.
Ghost?
Nothing, thank
That's
you.
all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Martrek. Moving to federal programs, Mr. Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. I have nothing, Mr. Renzi.
No, sir.
Dr. Coons?
I have nothing, thank you.
We have nothing, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harshman. Moving to finance, Mr. Renzi.
Thank you. Request approval of the following donations. CAHS Bible Club from Tom and Vicki Neiswander for $20, and from Jason and Amy Riccio, $60, and also a donation of $500 from Ford Business Machines to be used for the 3rd annual Transition Fair. Any questions or objections, I'd like to have placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, it'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the attached requisitions, orders, and to authorize the district business office to process purchase orders and payments. No questions or objections, I'd like to have it placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, it'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval for the health insurance rate increases through the Allegheny County Schools Health Insurance Consortium assets effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Performance Blue PPO 9% increase. Performance Blue EPO 9% increase. Standard Dental 5% increase. And Davis Vision 3% increase. No questions or objections, I'd like to have placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, it'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to exonerate, waive, and forgive the delinquent taxes on parcel 40 -01-0090 for tax years 2021, 22, and 23 in the total amount of $4,498.01, conditioned upon both the Borough of Vanderbilt obtaining free simple title to the aforesaid property and the Borough of Vanderbilt and County of Fayette exonerating, waiving, and forgiving their respective delinquent taxes for the tax years 2021, 22, and 23 on the aforesaid property. In the event that both conditions are not met, the aforesaid delinquent taxes shall remain a tax lien against the aforesaid property, and entries shall be made in the public records to such effect. This exoneration and forgiveness may be memorialized in a written agreement prepared and approved by the district solicitor. No
Question.
I'm sorry.
Question on that. Why are we looking at this as an exoneration? What is the property being used for, or why? Is there a hardship or?
So this was a property that was a blighted property within the Borough of Vanderbilt. The Borough of Vanderbilt is looking to actually receive the property and have it transferred to them. And because that will be municipally owned property, to eliminate the delinquent taxes.
Okay, I just wanted to double check that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no questions or objections like that placed on the agenda?
Hearing no others, that will be placed on the agenda.
We have one additional item. Request approval to transfer all district depository accounts, with the exception of any pledged account, to Mid-Penn Bank in accordance with and acceptance of the proposal of Mid-Penn Bank. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda, please?
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
That's all I have, Mr. Panzella. Anything you have to add, Mr. Detweiler?
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Kokenair?
Nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Robinson?
Nothing further, thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Panzella. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Moving to food service, Mrs. Sangston.
Request approval of the 24 summer food sites. Wolfskin Township Elementary School at 125 Pleasant Valley Road, Connellsville. West Crawford Elementary School, 215 Falls Avenue, Connellsville. Springfield C&P Elementary School, 14 Schoolhouse Road, Normanville. Connellsville Community Center, 201 East Fairview Avenue, Connellsville. It'll be from June 24, 24 to August 2nd, 24. Meal serving times will be from 11:30 a.m. to 1. The adult meal pricing is $4.75. Any questions or objections? I would like that on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Oh, I had Mr. Mortray.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Kokenair.
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing at this time.
Whoa, okay.
It's not brewing.
But we're not here, Wednesday's not here yet.
Is that in this thing?
Oh, that's it, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you. Moving to personnel and review and liaison, Mr. Renzi.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request a conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks of the following additions to the professional substitute list for the 2023-2024 school year. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request a conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks of the following additions to the support personnel substitute list for the 2023-2024 school year. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the retirement of custodian effective June 30th, 2024. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the resignation of A, effective May 29th, 2024. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, shall be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the resignation of maintenance, effective June 30th, 2024. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the resignation of A, effective April 19th, 2024. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the resignation of the truant officer, effective June 6th, 2024. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the resignation of accounts payable superintendent and board secretary effective April 26, 2024. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval for Sandra Cassetti and Diana DeWitt, CA ESPA officers, for release time on April 19, 2024, to attend the PSEA ESP House of Delegates with cost to be reimbursed by PSEA. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval for an A to take a leave of absence effective April 2nd, 2024 until on or about May 3rd, 2024. No questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to cast a vote for John Detweiler in the runoff ballot for the Eastern Region School Board Member Administrative Trustee position on the Allegheny County Schools of Health Insurance Consortium. No questions or objections. Well, I have a question. What is that, Mr. Detweiler?
Just the health board that dictates your rates and all that you just got.
They raised your 9% a little bit.
Those guys give you 9%.
You can help with those rates, Ernie?
I'm not going to because they're the other school districts that went with the other guy, but
Okay. Thank you.
Wait a minute, you gotta help us.
I tried, I talked to him, but that dude just has a pocket full of cash to give somebody.
Okay, no questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
The following family and medical leaves are confirmed by the board. No questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, it'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the memorandum of understanding between the Collinsville Area School District and the Collinsville Area Educational Support Personnel Association regarding autistic support teams. No questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the retirement of aide effective May 29, 2024. No questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the retirement of cafeteria effective May 31st, 2024. No questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the retirement of custodian effective June 30th, 2024. No questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
And request approval to accept the resignation of teacher effective July 1st, 2024. No questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Anything, Mr. Detweiler?
Nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Kokenar?
Nothing else, thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Nothing, thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Pansell.
Thank you, Mr. Renzi. Moving to policy and legislative, Mr. Martre.
Thank you, Mr. Panzel. We have nothing for the agenda for Wednesday. Mr. Driscoll, you have anything?
I have nothing.
Mr. Harshman?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martre. Moving to safety and security, Mrs. Driscoll.
I have nothing. Mrs. Sexton?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Parlak?
Nothing, thank you.
And have, place that on the agenda.
Thank you, Mrs. Driscoll. Excuse me. Moving to special education, Mr. Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request for the Connellsville School District to accept the Autism Initiative Grant through Patton for the 2024-2025 school year. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Conference, request for Nick D'Amico to attend Special Education Leadership Conference in Gettysburg from July 9th through the 11th, with all costs being paid through Patton's Comprehensive Support Grant. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the agreement between New Directions and the Connellsville Area School District for educational services for the 2024-2025 school year at a per diem of $150 per day per student. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
That's all I have, Ms. Driscoll.
I have nothing.
Mr. Martre.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. D'Amico.
Nothing, thanks.
That's all we have, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hirschman. Moving to student services, Mrs. Driscoll.
Hi, Student Services Virtual Cohort, request for Jennifer Sanzo, Nick D'Amico, and Nick Bosnick to participate in Hatching Results Virtual District Leadership Cohort from August 20th, 24 to June 2025 at a total cost of $2,500, paid through the ARP ESSER Fund. If there are no questions, we'd like to place that on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Training request for Nick D'Amico and Marcy Kintai, and I'm sorry I butchered that, to attend the virtual training, Educational Impact, School-Based Speech and Language Services that work on May 17th at no cost to the district. If there are no questions or comments, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Ed Insight, request of the Connersville Area School District to purchase a 20-hour Ed Insight coaching package at a total cost of $4,800, paid through ARP ESSER grant. And with no comments or questions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
And Chestnut Ridge, request for Chestnut Ridge to offer question, persuade, and refer training to staff of the Connersville Area School District on August 8th, with all costs paid for through the Title II funding. With no questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda also.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request for Melissa Brownfield, Penn State Outreach Coordinator, to offer youth mental health first aid 101 trainings on July 18th and August 18th to 6th through 12th grade staff of the Connersville Area School District, with all costs paid for through the ARP ESSER funds. No questions or comments, we'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Positive action training, request for the Fayette County Drug and Alcohol Commission to provide positive action training for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade staff of the Connersville Area School District on July 22nd and August 6th, with all costs paid for through the Title II funds. With no questions or comments, we'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the student-teacher assignment with St. Vincent College for the fall 2024 semester. With no questions and comments, we'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
And Smart Futures, request for the license agreement between Smart Futures and the Connersville Area School District at a total cost of $12,096, paid through the Ready to Learn grant, subject to the Connersville Area School District standard terms and conditions for the purchase of goods and services, $10,080 last year. No questions or comments, we'd like to place that on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Okay, and travel in accordance with policy 121, we'd like to request the approval of the following travel, and I'd like to incorporate 1 through 9. And with no questions or comments, we'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Supplemental contract, request the approval of the following supplemental contract for the 2024-2025 school year, contingent upon receipt of a signed contract no later than 1 month after issuance, including the posting of if the contingency is not met, and that's for the high school marching band. With no questions or comments, we'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
And that's all I have. Mrs. Sangston, do you have anything else?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Kokenauer?
Thank you.
Mr. D'Amico?
Nothing to that, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Driscoll. Moving to technology, Mr. Detwiler.
Thank you, Mr. Van Zyl. Request approval to authorize the sale of surplus Chromebooks at a cost of $50 graduating seniors until June 14th, 2024, and to district staff until June 28th, 2024, and to individual members of the general public thereafter on a first-come, first-served basis, with individuals being eligible to purchase 2 Chromebooks per person. If no questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to purchase digital document storage and delivery from PowerSchool at an annual cost of $8,601.75 with a one-time setup fee of $3,265. And before we put that on the agenda, I never give Kevin a chance. I was telling him that he knows all this stuff, but we never get it out to the public. So just real fast, can you kind of let them know what this is going to do for
Yeah,
us?
so this was discussed in our committee meeting. What this is it's web-based storage addition onto our PowerSchool student information system The biggest thing that we plan on using this for is delivering report cards. What's nice about this is every single individual report card will be put in their document storage. And so kindergarten through 12th grade, and then their final transcript will also be available. So these documents will be accessible from our parents, from our students for years to come.
Thanks, Joe. No questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Just an informative thing, the committee meeting was held April 17th, 2024 at 11 a.m. Mr. Martre, anything else?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Hartman?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Gaddis?
Nothing else, thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Penzola.
Thank you.
Mr. Manzel, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Mr. D'Amico, I wasn't paying attention on the last item under marching band. Is that just a posted position right now? That hasn't been posted, has it? 20J.
Yes.
Well, that job has been posted?
We haven't had no interviews.
It's a supplemental.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I'm good.
Any other questions?
No, we're good.
Thank you. Transportation, Mr. Coconut?
Thank you, Mr. Manzel. Request approval of updates to the bus van drivers listed attached. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda. 22B, Transportation Committee meeting was held on April 4th, 2024, and April 18th, 2024. That's all we have, Mr. Manzel. Mr. Renzi?
That's nothing, sir, thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Nothing, thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Manzel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coconut. Any other President's report is request approval to continue the district membership for the 2024-2025 school year with Pennsylvania School Board Association Incorporated in the annual cost of $15,622.94, which includes membership, policy maintenance, and administrative regulations, as budgeted through board services, dues, and fees. This will be an increase of $620.62. No questions or objections, we'll add that for Wednesday. We have nothing under non-agenda, assistant to the superintendent.
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Nothing, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.